minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit, a frost so severe that eyelashes freeze instantly and stones shatter. The wind sweeps across the icy plains, raising blizzards of snow, and it feels as though the earth itself is trying to push away anyone daring to remain here. Today, even in the warmest jacket, a modern human could last only a few hours in such cold. Without electricity, without heating, without insulated houses, it would be a direct road to death. But 20,000 years ago, families lived here. They did not just endure the winter, they raised children, created art, and hunted. In places where today a person would desperately fight for survival, they managed to build a world. How did they do it? How did Ice Age humans endure winters when temperatures dropped to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit?
When we think of ancient humans, one image instantly comes to mind. Savages in animal skins huddled around a fire inside a deep cave. This stereotype is so deeply ingrained that it seems obvious. Caves must have been their only salvation from the cold. But archaeology reveals a completely different picture. Ice Age peoples did not passively hide in dark grottos. They built real houses, semi-subterranean dwellings dug beneath the frozen soil. Huge shelters made from the bones of extinct giants, mammoths. Snow houses that were as effective as modern Arctic igloos. These were not random accidents of nature, but carefully designed constructions. People experimented, searched for the best materials, considered wind direction and soil properties. They were not cave savages. They were Ice Age engineers who turned harsh nature from an enemy into an ally. The first steps toward creating winter shelters appeared long before 20,000 years ago. Archaeologists have discovered traces of shelters hundreds of thousands of years old. Even then, humans realized the Earth itself could be a reliable shield against the cold. A simple pit dug into the permafrost could provide a chance to stay warm. Over time, these shelters became more sophisticated. People began to dig deeper, reinforce the walls, and cover the floors with grass and hides to keep heat from escaping into the ground. Eventually, real semi-subterranean homes emerged, round or oval pits covered with frameworks of wood, bone, or snow. The key to success lay in a simple observation. Beneath the soil, the temperature was always higher than on the surface. Even during harsh winters, the ground could retain warmth that was 20 to 30 degrees above the outside air. This knowledge allowed people to create stable living conditions while blizzards raged outside. These first steps became the foundation for future innovations, and they prepared humans for the greatest challenge, life during the last glacial maximum, 20,000 years ago, when temperatures in some regions dropped to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit.
How did humans survive in conditions where cold killed faster than hunger? The answer lies in remarkable inventions and resourcefulness. Every element of their homes and daily life was carefully thought out, based on observations of nature. But how do you keep a fire burning when there are almost no trees? In the Ice Age world, forests were rare and firewood was a luxury. People found another way. They burned dried animal dung, grass, and even mammoth bones. Bones burned slowly, giving off long-lasting heat, while grass and dung acted as tinder. This allowed hearths to burn for weeks, conserving every scrap of fuel. But how do you keep a house warm without bricks or concrete? Their homes were built in layers like a thermos. Inside, walls were lined with animal hides, fur facing inward to hold the heat. Moss and dry grass were added on top, creating insulation and absorbing moisture. On the outside, mats of reeds or bark blocked the wind and snow. This sandwich turned fragile shelters into true heat-saving cocoons. But even the warmest house is useless if food spoils. To preserve meat and fat through the long winter, people dug underground chambers in the permafrost. These were natural refrigerators. the cold remained stable and food stayed fresh for months. Sometimes, tunnels connected these storerooms directly to the shelters, allowing people to access supplies even during blizzards. But food was stored in many different ways, not only underground. People knew how to preserve animal fat in leather bags and bone containers, a vital source of energy. Just a piece the size of a hand could fuel a hunter for an entire day. Meat was sometimes dried directly in the freezing air, turning into lightweight rations that could last for months and be carried on long journeys. To protect these supplies and reinforce their shelters, people even used blocks of ice. Placed around the perimeter, they formed an extra wall against the wind, turning the house into something like an Arctic bunker, one that not only kept food safe, but also held back the fiercest storms. And still another danger remained: smoke and suffocation. Closed spaces filled with fire and people would quickly choke with smoke. To prevent this, they devised a simple but ingenious ventilation system. Small holes near the ground let in cold air, while vents above allowed warm, moist air to escape. This created natural airflow. Breathing was easier, while warmth stayed inside. But perhaps the most incredible feat was building houses out of mammoth bones. Giant skulls formed the foundation, curved tusks made the framework, and smaller bones filled the gaps. Everything was covered with hides, creating a house that could withstand storms and retain warmth. Even modern engineers are astonished by how well designed these shelters were. Every one of these solutions was born of necessity. Humans had no choice but to turn the cold from an enemy into an ally.
But life in an Ice Age home was not only a struggle against the cold, it was a space for family, culture, and even art. At the center was always the hearth. Sleeping areas were arranged around it. The warmest spots were reserved for children and the elderly. Caring for the vulnerable was essential for survival. The young and strong slept farther away, near the walls. In this way, a circle of warmth was created, where everyone knew their place. Winter evenings turned into workshops. Here, people made stone tools, ornaments, and bone needles. Archaeologists often find the famous Venus figurines in these homes, small statues symbolizing fertility. Creativity helped people maintain psychological resilience during long months of isolation. Children learned through play and observation. Elders told stories, passed down knowledge of how to build shelters and hunt. Mistakes could be fatal, so every skill had to be taught precisely and carefully. The shelter was not only protection from the cold, it was the center of their world, where culture was born, where people felt part of a community, and where they found the strength to endure another winter. Modern scientists decided to test just how effective were these ancient houses. Archaeologists and engineers reconstructed Ice Age dwellings, semi-subterranean homes in mammoth bone houses. The results were astonishing. Inside these shelters, the temperature could rise to plus 20 degrees Celsius, even when it was minus 40 or minus 50 degrees Celsius outside. And all this with just a small hearth that required very little fuel. Imagine, no modern insulation, no industrial materials, only bones, hides, moss, and earth. And yet these constructions worked as well as modern insulated houses. This was a true engineering marvel of the Stone Age. Ice Age humans did not merely survive. They created technologies that allowed them to live in conditions where life seemed impossible. Their homes were warm, comfortable, and durable. This was a turning point. We no longer see savages in skins. We see inventors capable of mastering nature and making it their ally. Today we live in warm apartments, check insulation, turn on heating or air conditioning, and take it for granted. But behind each of these habits lies ancient knowledge, born in the Ice Age. When we insulate our walls, we repeat the idea of layered structures of hides and moss. When we air out our rooms, we use the same ventilation principles as humans did 20,000 years ago.
when we store food in refrigerators. We do what they did in underground permafrost chambers. This knowledge helped our ancestors conquer the coldest regions of Earth. It allowed humans not to retreat from the frost, but to make it part of their lives. Every time we warm ourselves in winter, we use the legacy of the Ice Age. This is not just a story of survival, it is a story of human ingenuity that made us who we are. We have only just touched the surface of the Ice Age's secrets. In upcoming episodes, we will explore more incredible archaeological discoveries and uncover which inventions of ancient humans we still use in our everyday lives. To make sure you don't miss what comes next, subscribe to the channel, and you'll be the first to see the most fascinating stories.